Hey everybody, we are back with one of our last interviews of the show, and I'm very excited to have my friend Jessie States, who is the director of MPI Academy, here to talk to us today. So Jessie, have you been on Event Icons before, or is this your first time?
I think this is my first time.
That's so exciting, so we're very excited to have you here.
It's actually something that I've wanted to do for a long time, so I was really thrilled to be asked.
Well, we wanted to talk to you today about a topic that we haven't really covered much, the idea of risk management, right? So I've had the opportunity to work with MPI Academy to develop our crisis communication certificate.
Which we'll be offering in Toronto at WEC this year.
Yes, so part of the pre-conference, we'll be offering that. It's a 6-hour course, and how that came about is it was something that I was developing, and you guys found out I was developing, and we're like, we want this, right? This is important information for the industry. So I wanted to talk to you a bit today about risk management and your thoughts and ideas about what event planners need to know about risk management.
Thanks. And I think that it all comes down, and it's sad that we have to kind of wait for current events to wake us up. But a lot of times meeting professionals in the past just haven't been able to get any traction with their stakeholders or with their event owners around this. They're not able to get budget for it. It's kind of let's just wait until something goes wrong and then suddenly we realize we need to be doing something. And we started to see research coming out of the industry. More than half of meeting professionals don't have a written safety and security plan. More than half of meeting professionals aren't doing any emergency prep towards impromptu planning for incidents that might occur at meetings and events. So we started to see all of this start to come out, and we thought, there's a real gap in our industry related to just education around this topic. You talk about crisis communications, that's 6 hours all on its own, and it's probably only just...
And I think we did it at IMEX America for the first time, and the people who walked out said, so is there like an advanced course that we can take on this?
Yeah.
Because after 6 hours, they still wanted more, which is unbelievable that, a topic that's apart from risk management, it's like, how do you proactively plan for how to communicate to your attendees when something happens? Is more than 6 hours worth of education. So the fact that no one else was really talking about it at all before is like unbelievable when you think about it.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we're putting a lot of our efforts. We recently had a partnership with a group called NCS4.
Yes.
And they are the National Center for Spectator Sports Safety and Security. So they're the ones that work on safety and security for marathons, Super Bowls, Olympics, big events. And we thought if they already have all of these resources available for these mega events, there's got to be some material in there that we're able to take away and derive and utilize for conferences, trade shows, exhibitions, and even incentives.
Yeah, and I remember when, MPI gave me the opportunity as I was developing the content to be a part of, that research with them, and they had some incredible insights about just case studies and things to look at that you don't really think about when you think about crisis communications and risk management, because I think we as an industry, we come from a little bit of a place of ego. It's not going to happen to us, right?
Yes.
And I think fear is healthier than ego, right? It propels us to act and to prepare. And without that fear, when we say, oh, well, I'm not afraid of that, that's not going to happen to us, the risk goes up.
And I think there are more risks than we really are aware of when you think about, a lot of times we just think of weather, we think of, obviously, we think of terrorism, but we don't often think about our role in that process and the types of risks that we bring with us to events.
Yeah.
We don't always look at the content of our meeting or event and whether or not anything that we might be talking about might be controversial, whether or not we have a VIP or a speaker who might bring with them some additional needs related to not just who they are, but what they're going to talk about. Seems like everything these days is somehow controversial. And it's not always a protest against our event. It could be what we're experiencing here right now. There could be some kind of a strike, a union strike, for example, or taxis. There could be a protest that's happening completely completely unrelated to our event in a city that we need to be aware of. So there are all these mitigating factors and circumstances that play into how we need to prepare for something going wrong in a negative way, person, property, or brand, for our meetings and events.
And I think it's also a collaborative effort, right? Because when you think about crises and risk, it's not just your event, because we share our event space with other events. When you talk about venues and even cities that you might be sharing an event with, an event down the street,
yes,
you have to be aware of the risks that they bring also.
Yes.
And I don't think it's something that we think about.
We don't.
Yeah, and I think that knowledge share isn't there. And I think as an industry, we need to be more aware of it. What are some of the things that event professionals can start to do to just kind of get the ball rolling?
So to really get the ball rolling, I think that the first thing you have to do is to just start putting a plan in place. If you've got an old plan, dust it off. It's got to change for every single event that you hold, because there are different circumstances, different audiences, different topics, different speakers, different destinations, different venues, different cities. All of that changes each time, so we can't use the same plan over and over.
Right.
But start by getting a plan in place, and there are a lot of example plans that are out there. We use iShare, one that's free. It's done by the U.S. government. It's called Ready Business. It's a really easy template to get started with. Yeah. I know there are other associations and organizations that have great templates too. So just get started. And then I would say the next step is to really do a risk analysis.
Yes.
Yep. It's to understand historical information, who your city is, who lives there, really doing a full assessment of your event and what it looks like, and then looking at what are some of the risks that are associated with this. Then you're just going to characterize those, and you're going to organize them according to how consequential they're going to be, and then how likely it is that they're going to happen, right? And that's how we
make the risk assessment matrix.
Yes,
right?
That's how we assess whether or not and then it's about mitigation at that point. Yeah. It's about, is this a risk we accept? Is this one that we need to transfer to somebody else, like an insurance company? Right. Or is there something that we can do to lessen whatever this risk might be? Yeah. And then you move forward. The other piece of advice I would give is really practicing the impromptu planning process. So we can plan all we want, and then the one thing that we didn't plan for is the thing that happens, right? Yeah. And so your entire team, our entire team, has to know exactly what their role is when that one thing happens, when that one incident occurs that we didn't expect. Everybody has to know their exact role, and they have to jump directly into it. So I just do scenario planning, basically. Every time you host a meeting or event related to your meeting or event, at the end of that, you take 5 minutes, throw a scenario at your team. Yeah. And then practice. What are you going to do?
I think that's one of the things that's important too, is that practice element, right? Like, people create plans, they live in a binder on some shelf, and then they never look at it again. Right. And I'm like, no. You should practice this. Close your eyes, pick out a scenario.
Yeah, if you have literally minutes, hopefully you have minutes. If you have very little time to react to something, then it's got to be part of your muscle memory. It's not something where let's go get the emergency binder out. Right. Let's figure out what we need to do.
Exactly, and I think training also not only your staff, but also we have volunteers at our events too. And they bring a whole other element to it as well, that you have to be thinking about.
And your speakers.
Sometimes
they're the front line. Sometimes they're the one that has the microphone to the audience to help them to decide what to do. Yeah. And that's critically important. The people at NCS4 gave me a really interesting stat that I love. And that they call it the 10-80-10 rule. And basically that describes your audience. So 10 people, in the event an incident occurs, something goes wrong, some kind of an emergency, 10% of people are going to be extremely proactive. Yeah. They're going to be helping. They're going to be guiding people in the right direction. They're going to be moving people. Do whatever needs to happen, those 10% on top of it. 80% of people are going to sit there and wait until they're told to do something. They will literally just sit
Yeah.
and wait. And that's when your speaker has to be able to be prepared, step in,
Right.
understand what the procedures are. And then your other 10% are obstructionists. You're going to say, don't grab your purses, get out immediately. They're going to start looking, they're going to let me just finish this email, right? So you've got 10, 80, 10, and I think that's a really adept way of looking at your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So for our audience, what is one single tip that you could give them for getting buy-in from their higher ups? Because I think one of the challenges we come across is, again, that ego. It's not going to happen to us. We shouldn't invest the time and the resources and energy into something that's essentially an insurance policy, right?
Yes, but I am the biggest proponent of the transition from organizer to strategist consultant in terms of where our industry is going. But I will say that as much as I love to talk about how meetings drive business for organizations and we have to measure and be able to articulate that value and all of this, actually our number one job as meeting professionals isn't any of those things. It's to keep people safe. This is our number one job.
Yeah.
This is the top of everything that we do, and we don't even, some of us, we're not even having the conversation yet. So
Yeah.
I think that, but in order for us to really drive home the why this is important, we have to do the same thing that we have to do for our meetings and events, and that is we have to articulate the business value of why we should do this.
Right.
And so we've got to actually make the strategic argument that if we don't invest in preparing for,
It's going to cost
safety,
more money.
it's going to, yes.
Yeah.
With all business, that's what it comes
Yep.
down to, right? It comes down to financials. So you got to make the business case.
Yeah. Well, Jessie, this has been wonderful, and this we could talk about this for a full hour. So we'll have to have you back on the show. But
Thanks for
thank you
having
so
me.
much for having us, and we have a few more guests and surprises coming up. So we'll see you back soon.
Thank you.